heard this thing, which is Australians can add ED onto the end of any word, and every other Aussie will inherently know what they're talking about.
Oh.
And they were like, mate, I was fucking distributed last night.
Meow Ludo is a biohacker and chief scientist at MOTH Diagnostics. He's a transdisciplinary scientist that founded the biohacking movement in Australia. I've known Meow for quite some time now, and we always end up in interesting discussions over too many bottles of wine. I thought I'd remove the alcohol and add some cameras to see if the net result was the same. Close enough, I guess. We cover topics including the integration of technology with biology, the legal ramifications of transhumanism, how we shape technology and how technology shapes us, artificial intelligence, and the prospect of living forever. Enjoy. The first question is, if the world was going to end tomorrow, and maybe it will, what would be your last meal?
I'm guessing if it was 100% certainty that the world was going to end, I would probably eat something I'm not supposed to eat. Because I'm going to die anyway. I think it'll be an interesting experience. I would probably, for flavor though, like the real answer to this question, I'd go to Vietnam and have bowl of pho.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Any particular place you'd be going?
I don't know.
Right?
The best one, man.
Yeah.
I'll probably call you up and say, hey, where is it? I'd probably go somewhere traditional but good. Mm-hmm. But I think for me, like, it would be soup.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and a Vietnamese pho would be
right up there.
Right up there. Okay.
Japanese ramen would be good, but I think I would want to be somewhere humble if it's the last day, and I feel like Japan's a bit too pretentious. So.
Okay. Fair enough. Yeah. The second question is, and it's sort of a two-pronged question.
Yeah.
What is your favorite virtue?
Yeah.
And which virtue do you think is most overrated?
I'm pretty amazing, so I'd say humility is probably the best virtue. I think humility. I think the most overrated virtue is probably philanthropy. Yeah,
Why do you
or
do that?
altruism, because like I don't really believe it exists, and I think the fact that it exists is actually a moral failing of society in the first place, at least under capitalism, right? So, the fact that charities have to exist or even do exist, I think is kind of crazy, when I would prefer a socialized approach. I think it's like it's a failure of people working together that causes this to even be a thing in the first place. I think
So you don't think it could be like just a mutually beneficial sort of situation in which a person feels good about giving and then the people who need it get?
That means that it's not altruistic in the first place.
Of course, yeah. So it's more of a
right?
definition of altruism that becomes... altruism, by its very nature, could very well be impossible.
Yeah, I think that's definitely there. And also when we see these things, right, Twiggy donates, donates a whole heap of COVID testing kits. This is a failure of government, not like a thing that, some billionaire has done well. Like, if we someone worked out that like, if he paid tax, how many of these kits we could get, right?
Yeah.
But for some reason, people associate wealth with being virtuous.
Right.
That if only the poor can work harder and longer hours and, study more and try harder, that some way they have a chance of being rich, which is fucking nonsense, right? But also the other side of the coin is that rich people somehow have deserved to get all this money because they must be pure of moral or something like this. So I think that, philanthropy and this type of stuff, it's overrated because, like, if I had fucking $1 billion, I'm sure I could give some away to people and look like I'm doing something nice when the vast majority of my wealth is sitting in fucking, Panama or some shit like that.
Okay, and then the last question for these quickfire ones is, who was the first person you remember looking up to?
I think that would be my dad for sure. So my dad spent a lot of time with me when I was very young, teaching me, and like all my earliest memories involve him telling me something cool, and it definitely like inspired me to become a scientist.
Oh yeah?
My first job I ever wanted, genetic engineer. Because Jurassic Park came out, right?
Oh,
like,
Jurassic Park was great. Yeah.
Dad, how do I make dinosaurs? It's like you have to become a genetic engineer. I went through like 300 different career ideas, and then ended up genetic engineer. So
See, I watched that movie and I was like, paleontologist. You watched it and you were like, genetic engineer.
crimes against nature. Reverse extinction, yeah.
I will become a philanthropist one day.
That's it. It's amazing how similar like the story of Jurassic Park is to the current crisis we're going through as well, about like reopening things before they're ready. Yeah, the terrifying things that should be contained, not being contained.
Yeah. What's if you were going to, if you could write the next Jurassic Park, you know how there's been Jurassic World and you know, and like it sort of escalates to the
genetically
point.
modified dinosaurs.
Yeah, we've been through that now, and they had that. What was it called? The fucking Andromeda Rex or whatever the hell it is. I don't know what it is.
Man, I just remember he was
a
like
hybrid.
bigger. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a hybrid. What would the plot be if you got to direct or write that?
Cyborg genetically modified dinosaurs.
Of course.
Right.
Of course.
You just got to add, connected to the internet. The Wi-Fi version is the one after that.
Yeah.
You can't disconnect their power.
Yeah.
What if you get via 5G?
Wi-Fi Dilophosaurus, where
That's
it just
it.
picks up with its ears.
Its spine comes up, it gets in reception, it finds where your phone is.
Bounces the signal. I like it.
Yeah.
Okay. That's actually a good segue into talking about integrating tech.
How do we make
with
things
biology?
cooler?
Yeah, and so I guess just starting out, you've got a bunch of tech in your hand, and how many have you got now?
You do too, dude.
I do. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's why we're having this
That's
conversation.
it. So I've got at the moment I have 3 chips. So I have a small little grain of rice sized chip on my thumb. I have another kind of strip one here. That's another NFC chip. These are both reprogrammable, so you can put about 1 kilobyte of information on them. That can be like
Just a link or something.
a link. You can load an app. It could be a Google Maps location. It could be a pre-written SMS. So you're kind of limited to what you can do with 1 kilobyte, but in that you can kind of auto do anything on a phone. You do the phone knows what to do. And then I have a chip that sits just behind my pinky that's about the size of my thumbnail, and it is my Opal card. So it's a modified Opal card that was the center of a pretty well-known legal case.
Yeah. And is that working now?
My phone reads it.
Yeah.
It's blocked. So until Transport New South Wales could make it work if they were benevolent enough.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So what are your thoughts about, I guess more broadly, technology as an extension of human beings? As you just said, I have tech that I kind of walk around with. And I guess to some extent, everybody does that has a phone.
Definitely.
Just like a spade is an extension of our hand, this phone is an extension of us and allows us to do things. Do you see much of a difference between the tech that you have inside you and just what we use with our phones? Is it just a more convenient version?
Cooler.
Yeah, it's cooler.
Yeah. But basically, I think part of the reason that I even did this in the first place is to ask that question, right? Like why is it different if I have it in my hand than if I've got an NFC chip on a ring? People respond to it completely differently. I respond to it completely differently.
Yeah.
I think there is something different that happens when you put the technology inside your body or make it actually physically a part of you. And I think what you've said as well about technology being an extension of ourselves is definitely the way that I see it, because I think that like we think about like a spade is this like very physical, concrete kind of manifestation of a technology, but the phone is just a dumb pipe to the internet. It's more like a doorway than it is an actual physical thing. This is how I think about phones, at least. My friend actually, who made my chip, Amal, talked about, imagine a world where all of us have mobile phones, but no one owns any physical phones. So there's just tens of thousands of them everywhere, and you just pick it up. Your chip connects to your phone, and it just loads your profile, and you just connect to the internet. So like you don't need to carry anything with you. They're just kind of scattered
like hiring
everywhere.
a bike off the side of the road.
Exactly right.
Yeah, right.
And what we're trying to get at here is that this is just a pipe that connects you to the collected knowledge of the human race. And this is already some kind of shared collective exo-consciousness that everyone feeds into, accesses, creates together. And that's the real technology. And now it's just about the stepping stones that we have in between now and completely fusing with that. And we know where some of those steps are. We've got like Elon Musk's Neuralink. Looks like, a very good step. He released just last week, or this week, rather, Neuralink will allow you to stream music to your brain. I'm like, out of all the fucking applications, it's like saying, oh, you can just download Big Brother straight to your memory, and then if you're bored, you just watch it before you go to sleep. I'm like, motherfucker, I can access all the information of the human race directly from my brain.
And you're going to get Big Brother.
Like fucking, I'm going to stream music to my fucking brain. Like, I just want to like, you know, fucking, oh, I'm sleeping. Well, while my brain's not doing anything, I'll just like use the spare cycles to just fucking work out cures for COVID or something. Or become the cure for COVID, you know, like.
But I guess he's got to kind of sell it to people who would otherwise think that was really weird. Give them something. You can have Big Brother. Live. You can have it live.
We'll look out of your eyes, which broadcast it to everyone else.
It's
just like, I feel like there's well, he's got a sales and marketing team, so they must have decided that this is like the killer app, Spotify for your brain. And I'm like, really? What about the fucking GoPro to an eagle or some shit and stream that shit to my brain?
I'd watch that.
I would do that.
I mean, for a bit. Like eventually, you'd be like, okay, I get it. Like,
how long? How long?
5 minutes?
Oh, come on.
I don't know, 5 minutes.
What about if it's a really
5 minutes is a really long time to be an eagle. Have you ever been an eagle before?
15 minutes. I reckon like, okay, you've done VR much, right?
Not really. My friend in Paris put one of those things on my head, and it was one of the really crude ones that has it's sort of made out of cardboard, and you slot a phone into it. And I was on the savannah. I mean, I don't know if it was a savannah, it looked like it. And I would look around and there would be a lion. And I would just be like, okay, fight or flight response, but not really. And then the lion kind of just gets bored with you and fucks off, and that was it.
5 minutes?
Less.
Full on. See, like for space stuff, I can sit in there for fucking hours, man.
Oh, I could watch that for a while, but that would put me to sleep. I'd like that. Have you seen the space, it's like a simulator?
Universe Sandbox.
Universe Sandbox.
I played Universe Sandbox 1. That's amazing.
That's great.
And I've seen the videos for Universe Sandbox too, and I think that these physics engines are brilliant because, you know, physics on that scale just behaves completely differently. Like, you know, we're under the experience of gravity right now, but it doesn't really mean much other than we're stuck to the ground. But on that scale, you know, two bodies move. If you have two marbles next to each other, they don't do shit. But if you have two marbles the size of planets, they fucking do. Like, seriously so. Yeah,
there's people that have YouTube channels where they run simulations creating black holes the size of a penny and putting it next to the Earth, and it just destroys it. Like,
this is the fun of it, though, right? Like, oh, what happens if the moon was the size of the sun?
It's good.
Yeeting planets out into fucking interstellar space. That's like,
So, just back to the technology thing, when you were talking about the natural progression of us fusing with technology, I do want to ask you about what you think about the legal ramifications of technology being infused with us. And because you've had a bit of experience with that, of people like, if you take a piece of technology and put it into your body, who owns that?
I think it's also important at this point to define what we mean when we talk about technology, because like I'm not, like I'm a technologist, but my background is wet. Right, it's biology is my primary technology, so I do mainly biotechnologies. I was on a panel with a chick named Liz Parrish, and she's aging backwards. So her technology is genetic. So in Australia, this might be a little bit different because DNA can't be patented, but a treatment might be able to. So that's kind of interesting there. I think with things like an opal card, it's very concrete. There's rules written about who produces it, whose idea it was, and things like this. I think when you start going to biotechnologies, it becomes even more complicated because you have nature literally inventing alongside of you. It's trying to solve the same problems often as well. And also trying to undo your solutions. So I think that I was a very thin end of a very interesting wedge. And I think that the biggest court cases coming up in this space are very soon, but yet to happen. And my case, I could have taken them to court around the idea of the government trespassing on my body. So them switching something off for no really good reason. It is kind of an act that goes against the common law. The more interesting case that is coming up will be around cochlear implants, where we're going to see the first transhuman court case. So right now, a cochlear implant can hear way outside the range of human hearing. But by default, it's been limited to the range of human hearing.
Okay, because they don't want anyone to be superhuman. God forbid.
Why fucking not, though?
Yeah.
You know, so, and the thing is, The people with cochlear implants have gone from having a disability to exceeding human ability. And we'll see this more and more with technology now. And people with disabilities will by just default be more than human.
Is that because is there another reason behind that? Like, do they not want them to be too sensitive to loud sounds or so? What's the actual reasoning behind it? Or what's at least the...
Well, I think they weren't trying to create a transhuman product, right?
Yeah.
They were trying to remove disability rather than give ability. So if your goal is let's enable these people to hear, rather than let's give these people the hearing of a fucking bat, you're going to arrive at a different product. But the person who uses that might use it in a different fashion than we would expect. So the only people pushing for this are people with cochlear implants, not the people that design it. They did their job. You've gotten to a place that maybe it's like, you design a Lamborghini, but you only ever drive in the city. It's capable of doing all these things, but you're a rich mining magnate and you only drive between Vaucluse and the CBD. But there are people that will want to drive on the Autobahn. The Lamborghini may not have been designed for the Autobahn, it's just capable of those things. So in this case, do the people who have proprietary technology put inside their body, much like I have, that don't have control of it, have some right over the way that it's used after that? Do they have some legal right over that as well? Well, once the technology becomes a part of them, like their fucking ears in their cochlea have been shaved off and fused with a piece of proprietary technology owned by someone else, how much right do they have over that? If they void the terms, does Cochlear have the right to be able to shut down that implant? Because that becomes interesting, because it's not like it's a fucking pacemaker. A pacemaker, you'd be like, well, you can't fucking kill someone. Can you give them back the disability? Legally? We don't really know the answers to these questions.
Yeah, and there's very little precedent to...
There is zero precedent. Like, well, that I know of at least. That's why my case made news, is because this may be setting precedent for this case. And this would be the big one, where a company opts to remove an ability that was granted that removed a disability and no more. Because this person broke the rules, went to jail. Who knows what the event was that will take it away? But it will change us as a race about how we think about ourselves and technology.
Let's take the idea that there's a continuum between us and fusing with technology and combining in the future. And if we extrapolated the potential timeline of that over, let's say, 50 to 100 years, and at the same time, we were kind of forced to imagine the exponential timeline and progress of artificial intelligence. Do you think that there would be a cross point at which it could become dangerous to be fused with a technology that could be harnessed by anyone else?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. I think the thing with machine learning and AI, if like from my understanding, when I've really sat down and thought about it, is we're creating a new tree of life, not a branch, but a completely new tree that hasn't evolved, under any of the same conditions. It's amoral at the moment, at least. It's very objective and all these things. I think anyone that thinks that you can program empathy into a machine as a possibility is wrong. Like I struggle to think of any situation where
you could program guidelines, but you can't program empathy. I
think that even once you get real serious machine learning online, I don't even know if you can program like guidelines.
Right.
Like
I think the autonomy just kind of takes over after all. Yeah, right.
I think this machine just endlessly optimizes itself, and then it realizes the guidelines stop it from optimizing itself. Right.
Is that so that the machine begins to evolve in itself in the same way that natural selection has? It will survive best if it were to ignore these guidelines.
Exactly right. Yeah. And all of these like machine learning algorithms and stuff, we teach them to play Mario World or something. They exploit every fucking glitch and bug in the game to generate the absolute best possible outcome in ways that humans can't do it. Why would we think that as they get more powerful, or that they're going to behave any differently than the absolute earliest versions that continually use the same process to be like clever, right?
Yeah.
But what they're doing is they're doing things that humans would never dream of doing, or in a way that humans would never do it, or exploit some fundamental flaw in the underlying technology that we didn't even think to look for, right? And our guidelines will be these flaws, ethics, morals, all this stuff.
And I guess the irony is that the way that most people think about AI as being this kind of malevolent or potentially malevolent figure in the future, is that it is by virtue of the fact that it would be completely devoid of malevolence.
That's right.
That would be the biggest threat to you.
Yeah, I think the thing
Or
is
devoid of
that
emotion, I should say. Yeah.
realistically, with this, it's unstoppable. And we all just have to understand that we spin a fucking wheel of fortune. And we don't know, maybe we'll be super compassionate because that's what gets what it wants. But like, you know, I doubt we have, like, I think we are naive to think that we will impart on our creation any part of ourselves. That somehow, you know, we have something amazing and unique that this AI will recognize and say, I want to be like that. Like, I just don't get it.
Is that part of that sort of we shape our tools and then our tools shape us?
That's
kind
right.
of, yeah.
And it literally will. We won't shape it the same way that it will shape us. But the best we can do is hope to stick along for the ride and fuse with it at the most opportune time. This is what we should really be doing.
Do you think that consciousness in the way that we experience it now will continue along with that, or do you think it will eventually be phased out?
I honestly believe that some sort of shared consciousness will dominate, and that singular consciousness will exist differently, like in Deep Space Nine.
All right, okay.
Odo joins the Great Link. Have you watched Deep Space Nine?
No, I haven't seen it.
He's a shapeshifter, and he goes to a planet of shapeshifters, and they all exist in this like clusterfuck giant lake where they all meld together. And he's like, the ocean becomes a single drop, and he breaks free from the collective consciousness, and then he's like, and the single drop becomes the ocean. And he goes back in.
That sounds extremely spiritual.
Yeah, it's pretty. Star Trek's fucking amazing. What can I say?
So, back to that topic of shaping our tools. I guess I'd spoken to you a while ago about that Marshall McLuhan, you know, the quote about technology and how the medium is the message.
Yeah.
And, you know, I guess he died a year or two before the internet was invented. And I always think to myself, what would he think about the way that we consume information now? Can you comment on how you think that medium with which we now consume information has changed us as a society, and what is the next step, if any? Yeah,
so I think that there's this feedback loop that exists with technology, that we dream tools, then those tools inform how we dream the next generation of tools. And I see this especially in biology, right? You know, someone creates a machine that does a job, and then someone creates a massively parallel version of the same thing, and then all of a sudden everyone's experiments design that. And it's a blind race towards some destination that no one's thought about. And sometimes it's just like, you know, it turns out that making 48 of these is the same cost as making one, and there's no real direction as to what's guiding those experiments. Jumping back a little bit, I think that the internet is kind of like this as well, right? So someone will create a programming language, or like, you know, or a way of doing things kind of blindly, but this will inform the ideas that people have, because it enables them to start looking at the constraints that exist there, and what happens if they modify one or more of them, and then that in turn iteratively goes towards something. But I don't think there's any direction. I think when he says the medium is the message, this is really important too, especially for biology, where literally the medium is a message. So you have this like high level redundancy of information that exists within the medium and literally is transformed to become the message. Bio is weird, and people always kind of try and make comparisons between it and software and hardware.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
I'm an advocate for actually thinking about it kind of like computers, because there's a lot of similarities, and I think, you know, mapping different concepts onto each other is a really fun way of understanding things. So some people say that like DNA is kind of like software that makes its own hardware.
Okay.
Right, so it's some sort of code, and that code is able to make the things that does the jobs and runs it and copies it and does all the other jobs around it. So, you know, DNA is able to create cells that exist around it, and it can create machines that do every single thing necessary for it to continue to copy itself, including like self-defense, dividing, copying, error maintenance, and all these types of things. I'm really interested in the intersection between biotechnology, machine learning, and nanotechnology. Ray Kurzweil, he's a bit of a nut job, but he also says some really interesting things, and he sees these as the three driving technologies that will bring about, some technological singularity, which may be, us fusing with machines, but it's probably more complicated than that. I think that Marshall McLuhan kind of didn't have any idea about this. Maybe in the back of his mind there was, some vague idea that we may reach this kind of level of technology, but I don't think it was what drove his stuff. He was looking at, contemporary problems and solutions. But we're in a situation now that we're getting scarily close to it. We forget how quickly technology evolves. We kind of pretend like we understand, but our brains are very good at thinking linearly. And technology definitely increases exponentially. Moore's law still holds true. And every 6 months it holds true. It's more amazing than the last 6 months by an order of magnitude, right? This is insane. How long can it go along? We also, our first iPhone came out in 2007, so that's 13 years ago. I was reading science fiction stories that would talk about, one day we'll get to a situation where technology is obsolete when it rolls off the factory line. And how many iPhones did they release last year? We went from none to one to they're obsolete almost as soon as they're made. And we can, it seems ridiculous to think that it will be obsolete as it rolls off the factory floor, but if you have a machine learning algorithm behind that, we can understand that reaching for the one behind is 10 times, 100 times better than the one that's just come off.
Yeah, but this is a thought experiment, right? I mean, there's no, in order to make something obsolete, something must follow it.
Yeah.
Right. So you're saying that on that production line, there will physically be...
Things get strange very close to the singularity. Right?
Yeah.
That's we're 2007, if I told you that they would release 3 iPhones a year and they would each supersede the other ones so much that people wouldn't be seen dead with the previous version of the iPhone.
Yeah.
You would laugh at me, but that's a reality now. People's status is linked to their iPhone or whatever.
Okay, but what about the economic sustainability of planned obsolescence and things like that? I mean, at some point, if we extrapolate that a few years in the future and everybody is, on universal basic income and just being issued iPhones like they're, food stamps or something.
Yeah.
They're not going to be able to afford to have the economic driver to push the obsolete iPhone out with the new one. It doesn't make sense, right? So there has to be some sort of a resistance that technology meets if it's only economically.
Well, in my version of the future is pretty bizarre, but ideally you would have an AI controlling distribution for materials and resources. And we go from high energy, low bandwidth systems to low energy, high bandwidth systems. So we go from radio to broadband, or something like this. So we see a push in this direction, and this would just be an extension of that using phone technology. So it would be something that uses less power, puts more to the cloud, something like that, in some measurable, meaningful way. That means the amount of power or processing you would save means it's economical to chuck your iPhone into a recycling bin where it will get turned into the next version, because the net gain would be more than you using it for a day or a week or something like that. Right?
Yeah.
But this decision wouldn't even be made by you. It would be, by this point, half our brains exist in the cloud with more capacity than we had in the beginning.
Yeah.
And you would know, some consensus would be made that we would all dump our iPhones in the bin, and we would take the new Borg phone or whatever it is, or we would upgrade to something else that would go inside our brain or something like this.
But at what point do then, I guess the natural question would be, at what point do humans in the biological form become superfluous to technology?
As you said, it's a continuum
earlier
on. So I think the only thing that matters for us is our nervous system, right? So it becomes when all functions of the brain can be replicated by a computer. And I think that this is actually an easier problem than people think it is. I think that there's this giant preconception we have that the brain is so complex it can't be modeled. I think there's a lot of shortcuts you can take in modeling it that will still produce the same outcome at the end. I don't think, for example, you need to monitor every atom. I don't think that's necessary for you to do stuff. I think there's probably much simpler equations that can be run in parallel with each other that can generate the exact output of our brain.
What, if any, threats do you see to the technological advancement of these kinds of technologies like fusion with people? Are there ethical issues that people are going to get involved with? Will there be religious rights groups that complain about playing God? What do you see? And do you think that these threats would be legitimate, or is it a case of like you eventually can't stop technology?
I think that there's only two paths in my mind, which is transcending and fusing with the technological godhead, or destruction, right? So it's an either or thing, and there are definitely threats. And everything you listed are like some of the massive ones. There are definitely people that think that there is some essential uniqueness in being human, and whether that's religious or scientific or whatever it might be, or just some sort of exceptionalism. And I think that they pose a massive threat. Like in my ideal world, they would have the choice not to come along. I think a lot of this technology comes down to like, how much do you remove someone's choice? There are a lot of libertarians that wouldn't join just because they don't like the fact that they didn't have a choice. With this, I think a lot of people, the Catholic Church, or all the churches, I think they kind of have two options. They either update their religion and try and bring it along, or they become obsolete, because eventually they'll all die or something like that. There's natural time limits to how long life can last on Earth, and I think that once a singularity kind of happens, or people fuse with this, I don't think there's much hope for the rest of life. We see religions like the Mormons kind of update their religion with like space Jesus and stuff like this. They write an extra book, Return of the Jedi, that gets slapped on the end, and then they're able to become contemporary again. I think that that's kind of the right way to go if you're part of these people, part of these groups. I think that there is serious threats from things like terrorism when people think that the outcome of their religion is dependent on certain factors being fulfilled. So we might see this in a lot of Judeo-Christian religions. Certain people have to be in certain places for certain events to take place. I think things like that are terrifying, because if you have a large following, they could deliberately try and stop this through things like bombing or cutting off power, sabotage, and those things at certain points of this technological development are like terrifying, because I think that they will lead to destruction as an outcome.
The second path that you're talking about.
Yeah, I think that it will wind up accidentally killing everyone or deliberately killing everyone.
Yeah.
But I think as well that if we continue business as normal, right? If we think that that's a realistic way of going, we will definitely create the technological singularity. That's like there isn't. If you just continue on without deliberately trying to sabotage it, or some existential threat like a meteor or a virus or something like this, you end up there. Capitalism drives you there. Socialism drives you there too. Both of these things are ways of improving efficiency, and it's something the human race and machines are even better at, right? And these types of technologies, they have a natural goal, which is like perfect efficiency, perfect use of energy, resources, and they all end in this idea that we're calling the singularity. It's just like a natural outcome of these processes.
I've heard you say before that, and not just after 51s, that you wanted to live forever. It was a goal of yours.
Yeah. Definitely. And like I think.
Do you think it's achievable?
Yeah, bro, I'm going to do it. COVID willing. I'm actively planning for that.
How are you planning? Is you fucking with telomeres? Like, what are you?
Telomeres is point A. So when we're thinking about living forever, right? So in the last 100 years, we've significantly increased our life expectancy, average life expectancy, right? There's natural limits that we know. No one's living till 140.
Yeah.
But there are animals in the biological kingdom that can, so it must be possible for some things, like trees can live thousands of years, So there are definitely living things that can do that. So it's not impossible. Is it impossible for a human? That's a bit trickier. But we know that, at the moment, every decade we add, I think it was like 3 months to our life expectancy, something like that, in Australia. And it's kind of slowing down as we hit this ceiling. What I'm trying to do is look for technologies that can increase that, so that instead of 3 months, I'm adding 3 years every decade to my life. This enables me to take advantage of technology that happens during those extra 3 years that might extend it by another year.
So rather than tapering off, you kind of taper up in a way that you eventually become 1-to-1, like for every year.
Outrunning the Grim Reaper, bro.
Yeah.
Right. So basically, we can imagine. Okay, what about if technology is accelerating exponentially?
Yeah.
All you need to do is get to the point that life expectancy is added a year on for every year.
For every year. Yeah.
And at that point, you're functionally immortal.
Sure.
And now there are technologies that can do better than a year per year. Telomeres does a 26% extension of life in rats. Not perfect, right?
Yeah.
But that means you take your average life expectancy from 82 to 104. And that's fucking decent. That's average as well. So like, if you have 1/5 of your life extra to take advantage of technology, and bear in mind, the technology in the last 20 years is better than the 80 years before, right?
Yeah, quality of life is a big factor.
But the thing is, if you take all that 80 years and condense it, it's probably going to be not even as good as the technology that comes out in that last 20 years of your life because of the rate that technology's increased.
Yeah.
We understand more about the human body. Our tools are better.
Yeah.
So we're able to do things that we couldn't do in the previous 80 years.
So it's a question of catching the wave of exponential growth of technology. Like.
The little bits you can add onto the end, even if it's 6 months or a year, could be the difference between you turning 80 and you turning 800.
Yes.
Like legitimately.
I know what you're saying, yeah.
The day that
it's difficult to think about it like that.
The day that they invent the ability to upload your brain, you're probably going to be immortal.
Yeah.
Like that's it.
Actually, on that note, if you know you're not going to make it, like say you get to 90, are there any sort of mitigating procedures you would ever do to yourself, cryogenic freezing or having your brain downloaded somehow if you could?
So I've been thinking about it a lot, that maybe there's enough of a digital imprint on me in the world that cryogenics is kind of obsolete. That maybe maybe I've left a big enough imprint just in my day-to-day lives, owning a computer, having a Facebook page, making phone calls that Google records and things like this.
Sure, but it's not a replication of your consciousness.
Well,
not yet. Anyway,
would it pass a Turing test?
I don't know.
Like, would you? Okay, if you got a phone call from dead Meow a year afterwards, do you think that Google could probably have a conversation with you and pretend it's me?
Sure,
right?
But that's not your experience,
but isn't it? At that point, right? Like if it can prove, like this gets into like strong and weak AI. Right?
Sure. Yeah.
There's a guy in a box. And there's a box that translates. You write a phrase in German, you put it in, it comes out in Japanese.
Right. If you open it up, there's a dead cat inside it.
That's it. Except it's not Schrodinger's now, it's Kiyosaki's because he got translated in the box. So basically the question is, okay, so you have a translator in there that can perfectly do it.
Yeah.
Or, and compare that with a guy that has a book that has, every German translation and every Japanese correspondent, right? Mm-hmm. Is there any difference? One, someone thinks and they punch it out, right? And one, he just looks it up in a table and he spits it back out. To the person at the other side, they experience no difference. Mm-hmm. Can that box speak Japanese and German? And does it make any difference?
I don't think it makes any difference to the person who is receiving the message, but arguing whether it speaks either language, I don't think is the right question. I don't think that question makes sense.
So the reason is, there's inputs, and we can think about this as a model for the brain, right? If it can convince an outside observer that it does the job, is there any functional difference? Like, is there some magic spark that's someone thinking inside a box?
Not for the observer.
Yeah.
But I don't
But I'm
think
saying
so.
I'm saying as well at the same time that the box, right?
Yeah.
It could be a consciousness, which would be someone thinking, or it could just be looking up tables, and maybe they're exactly the same thing. Maybe that book is the translation of German into Japanese because it contains every possible case.
I had this thought experiment that I was doing with myself years ago, and I think I even may have asked you about it one night. But it was that if you were able to teleport from one side of the earth to the other, and the process with which you did that was a complete deconstruction of every atom in your body, and then a reconstruction on the other side using different atoms but the same configuration in like a kind of 3D printer way. Would you do it? Would you be the same person at the other end? Would the person who left on this side lose consciousness?
Yes, no. So would I do it? Yes. Would I be the same person? Yes. Would you lose consciousness? I think you would experience a continuous stream of consciousness, kind of like when you've been to sleep and you wake up. It's probably not the best example. Maybe like a general anesthetic is a better thing, where you don't realize any time has passed.
Yeah.
That basically consciousness exists because it's played from start to finish.
Yeah.
Right. Each frame of consciousness seeks out the next frame of consciousness. As long as that consciousness frame exists, there is no time between. Greg Egan talks about this is quite a lot in his book Permutation City. He doesn't believe this theory that he created in this book, but I actually think that that's the way it is. And I think that maybe there is actually enough information now that my next frame of consciousness after I die could be guessed from the digital imprint I've left behind.
Yeah.
And because of this, every person that interacts with technology now, and I'm talking like computer technology, may already be immortal without knowing it.
We just have no reason to resurrect most of them.
Pretty much. But we may want to, and the thing is that people will die, and then their next memory may be 4,000 years from now, and the next frame they'll die and they'll wake up on an asteroid somewhere. They won't even notice. They'll like close their eyes in the hospital room and it'll be the Skyrim intro. Maybe they'll do that just to fuck with people.
Yeah.
I've heard there was another guy, I think it's Charles Stross, talked about a brand of super fire brand, Christians or something like this, that in the future decided that they would save every person in the human race. So they wake up everyone the second before they die, or reconstruct their brain, the frame after they've died, bless them, baptize them, and then just chop off their head, and then chuck them into the decompiler, and then they bring on Adam Smith 127, and then baptize him too, and they can just do it for every possible human that existed in every possible place in their life.
Yeah.
And run this automatically and just send everyone to heaven. So. But you can imagine Christians doing this.
Yeah, some.
Some, right?
Some. Yeah, there would be some. All right, I'm going to bookend this with 3 more quickfire questions that are not science related. Well, they could be.
Here we go.
If you had to change professions, but you could do anything you wanted, regardless of accreditation, what would that be?
Probably something quite different. So I think a sailor. I'd really like to be like sail on a yacht. That'd be fantastic.
As a job?
Yeah, I don't see job and personal life as like separate things. I think anything I do, there has to be some kind of fusion where it's my life's purpose to do this thing.
Yeah, okay.
Like live on the seas, or like I had a dream that I would retire and just study mushrooms for the rest of my life, like macrofungal taxonomy, just really straightforward description.
Yeah.
I just go out, I look for cool mushrooms, I bring them back, I look at their features with my eyes and under a microscope, and I just document them.
Yeah.
And I can work at whatever fucking pace I want, and the work is its own reward. I get to sit by the fire, drink whiskey, and just write things down and just observe. I guess it would be like not so much thinking. Both these jobs are very physical.
There's a methodology to them that you could sort of repeat or something.
Definitely, but it would be a lot more present than I am when I'm intensely thinking in all my jobs that I do.
That's interesting. If you had to live in another country other than where you do, where would it be and why?
Probably New Zealand or Canada. Why? Because they're very much like this country. So, I guess, honestly, I've thought about it a lot, and I think that I would probably go to somewhere where things like humor, culture, and things like that are the same, because I quite like where I am now. I love Australia as a country. There's a lot of things I don't like about it. I think that I would probably want to live somewhere very similar to this, and if not, I guess I would be like fucking Japan or something like that. Yeah.
They're not too pretentious for you.
Are they racist, pretentious? Fuck them. I'm gonna get banned once this goes on TV from like fucking ever going to Japan ever again. I think though, yeah, probably I'd go to somewhere like as similar as we are now. Yeah.
All right, if you had to spend a day with a clone of yourself, what would be the most annoying aspect of your clone?
Most annoying aspect, I think I would probably. The most annoying aspect of my clone would be something in conversation. I'm just trying to think what it would be. Fuck. I've thought about all the things I would do with a clone. Like
You can tell me about that, and maybe you can.
how did the clone get made?
It doesn't matter.
It does to me.
Okay, all right.
Like, do you want to have kids?
I don't know yet. Maybe.
Would you have a clone?
Would I have a clone? What
Yeah.
do you mean of myself?
Yeah.
God, no.
See, I would only have a clone.
Oh, you mean a kid is a clone?
Yeah.
Sorry,
we're
what
talking
I'm
clones,
talking
right?
about is if I could clone
Identical
you at
twin.
your same age. Right
I go in
now.
the transporter and I arrive at 2 places. Yeah. Probably that he owns half my assets or something, like
Yeah.
my very few assets.
Yeah.
That I can't beat him in games because he's perfectly matched. But
Yeah.
most annoying thing is probably ask questions like, how old is the clone? Is it a miniature clone? Is it like a 7-year-old version of me? Because like I can tell you annoying aspects of that kid would be like endless curiosity or something like that.
Okay, endless curiosity. That's a good one.
Yeah.
I like it.
But yeah, no, definitely like fuck. The problem with having kids, right, is it's like biological chance. You know, somebody has Hitler, somebody has Scarlett Johansson, whatever. You don't know what attributes this kid will have. You just have some genetic lottery that pops out something, and then like even if you're a good parent, you could have sneezed at the wrong time, and some kid creates a fucking schema that means he's a maniac. Clone's safe, bro.
A clone is safe, but wouldn't it even be better to be able to genetically engineer a kid not to become a psychopath?
No. Just harvest his organs. Well, he's nice and fresh and young. Maybe make him not a psychopath because he might like race you to do the same thing.
Maybe.
But I think that having a clone is kind of good. Like, I guess it touches on some of the themes that we talked about as well, which is like, how do we define legacy? What's immortality and things like that? And I think that, my dad said to me when I was very young about, I said, I want to live forever, Dad. And he's like, well, you're probably of the age that you very well might be the first generation to live forever. But, you can, there are already ways to do this. You can like plant a tree, write a book, or have a child. And I'm like, yeah, fuck all those 3 things, unless the kid is literally me, that I can put my own consciousness directly into.
Yeah.
Writing a book is slightly more appeal. Planting a tree, that's a shitty way to become immortal. Would you agree?
I think so, yeah.
That's fucking crap.
I mean, it's a great thing to do. I don't think
What about
for
one of those
immortality
fucking plane
purposes.
trees that drops those fucking allergenic bombs in the city? No,
I hate
fuck
those,
that.
yeah.
The dude who planted that tree, I'm going to cut it down and he will no longer be immortal. He'll be immortalized in
Unless
my
he's written a
sinuses.
book, and in which case, you're fucked.
Why I fucking love creating an allergenic city.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fuck those trees.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think that rounds out.
That wraps
things
it up.
nicely, Yeah.
That was really good.
That was good fun.
Thanks, man.
Boom.
I'll talk to you again soon.
Sounds good.
Yeah.